You're listening to the uMentor Talk Show. This show is actually going to be hosted by me, myself, Fatima Al Sayed, and Imran Durumzi. It is a sort of a crossover, I would say, of the professional edition of the uMentor Talk Show and the teen edition of the uMentor Talk Show. So we're trying out a new format, and hopefully this is more enjoyable for everyone.
But first, before we get into that, we wanted to talk about the Inspire platform. It is a new question and answer platform for career advice in our Shia community. As a rising professional, you can ask for advice. And as a mentor, you can give advice to our community's future professionals and younger students. And it's available via the Umoja app on Android and iOS. Okay, so as Fatima mentioned, today is a little bit of a special show. We have an engineering panel. So our first guest
is going to be Zaynab Sbeiti. She received her bachelor's in civil engineering in 2019 and started her first engineering job in September 2020, which is right in the middle of the pandemic. As a visibly Muslim female, she is trying to pave the way for future generations on the construction field. She has a very inspiring story, so we're very excited to hear it.
And our second guest for today is a student, Salmaan Bhimji, a mechanical engineering student at Penn State University. And his goal is to help the global community with his profession. So he's also on the side working towards starting his own business and getting his private pilot's license. So we are looking forward to talking with him about all of that.
Assalamu alaikum, Zaynab. How are you?
How are you guys?
We're doing well. Zaynab, before we start, can you tell us how you got into engineering?
Well, I always had a passion for math and physics. I know not usually everyone's favorite, but I also had a creative side, which I actually like to pursue more as an architect. But I was late into applying for university, and turns out I need a portfolio in architecture. So I said, what the heck, I'll go into civil engineering.
That's cool. So it was sort of like, I don't have the ability to do this or the patience to do this, so I'm just going to apply to this instead.
Yeah, I was in a hurry to get in.
So you studied, sorry, Imran, you studied engineering in Quebec. Can you tell us what went into the decision to go to school in Quebec?
Well, I was born in Quebec. So people born in Quebec get like special rate in university. It's much cheaper than the rest of Canada or the States. And also my family was living back in Lebanon when I went to university, and so I decided to come back to Canada just because education is better in uni. And I had family there, so I didn't have any family in Toronto where I am now, and I had family in Quebec and Montreal, so I went to Montreal and I enjoyed it.
So Sister Zaynab, what would you say was the hardest part of university for you?
The hardest part was juggling all the courses that you have to be prepared for. So organization is something very major. You have to have you have to plan your schedule like at least a week in advance, just to know all the things that you have to keep up with in terms of assignments, of exams, of midterms, all that. And I was living alone, so for those students that are living in dorms or something, well, right now everything's online, but generally that makes it much harder. You have to even plan like the rest of your life, your meals, your sleeping schedule, everything, because there's no one to help you out with that.
So we know that your program was a little different because it didn't have the co-op part to it. Can you tell us why this was something that made it harder for you later on?
So because my university in Montreal has so many international students that go back home in the summer or are not fluent in French, which makes it harder for them to actually get an internship in the city. So in my program, co-op wasn't required. So I graduated without an internship or a co-op. And it made it so much harder because I didn't put so much emphasis because I didn't think it would be so important once I graduated to find a job. I'm like, what the hell? I don't want to be late. I just want to graduate and I'll deal with everything later. And you're under so much pressure and stress to just do your exams and finish your semester. But once I graduated without a co-op, because I don't have that experience and the field is so competitive, it just put me like much lower on the list of like people they actually want for their companies, because there's so many students that actually did have experience throughout their university years, and that just those people stand out to companies that want to hire them.
Right. So, that being said, how many jobs did you apply for?
Oh man. So after I got the job that I have now, I was just cleaning out my inbox, getting rid of things I didn't need.
Yeah.
And so you know how every time you apply to a job, like they send you an email like you've applied to this job or thank you for applying. So I cleared out over 200 job applications.
Wow.
Yeah. Now some of them were directly related to engineering and project coordination. Some of them were like around the boundaries of that. I just wanted to get my foot in the door. I just wanted like someone to realize I'm there, and then I get to prove myself and they see, oh, I'm capable of doing this. So I was applying to anything and everything.
You mentioned that without experience and connections, it's very, very hard to get a job. So how did you actually create these connections for yourself? Because you did end up getting a job, so you're showing us that it's possible.
Yeah. So universities hold job fairs, career fairs. If you're an engineering student or going to engineering, you will probably get emails about those, or someone in university will tell you about them. So those are important. Go to them. Have your CV ready. Even if you have no engineering experience on your CV, put jobs that give you skills that these recruiters are looking for. So that's one way to make connections. Make yourself noticeable to them. Add them on LinkedIn so that you're just there. Number two is I would just talk to people, like regular conversations. I'm a pretty social person, so I would talk to anyone and everyone that I feel is willing to talk. And so I'd be talking to them. It's a completely random strangers sometimes. At my old job, I used to work at a supermarket. And they would be customers, and we'd start talking, and I tell them, oh, I graduated from engineering. And then they would know someone that knows someone, or like a family member. And they would just be like, oh, here's my contact information. Send me your resume, send me an email. I'll help you get something. And then the third way is through either university friends or just life friends. They know someone that knows someone that's really close with someone that can help you get hired. So those are my main three ways that I realize everyone has in common. And they're really important, but I don't want to discourage anyone that doesn't really know anyone like that or isn't as outspoken about their education. So another way would be is try to get an internship while you're in school. Get that experience on your CV.
And so what if you don't know exactly what you want to go into? How would you recommend creating connections and finding internships related to like a field?
Oh, just like in general, not to do with
Like
engineering?
let's say you don't know what kind of engineer you want to be, for example. How would you go about creating connections?
Well, when you still haven't figured out what engineering you want to be, like you still don't know what kind of connections you want to make. You generally have to figure out what kind of engineering you want to go into after the first year of university, after the first year that you take your general engineering courses. That's a personal matter. You'd have to do your research. And their engineerings are very different. Like, okay, they're good at like math and science, physics, but they're very different. Like you will know if you want to go into electrical or mechanical or civil, they're very different.
With trying to get an internship, what do you suggest that people do? Wait until they're done with school and try to go for that internship, or try to get it during school?
No, definitely during school. Definitely during school. Career fairs help a lot. Sometimes if you feel like you're close to a professor or a professor likes you, approach them. Tell them I'm trying to get some experience. I want to work in engineering for the summer. Do you have any connections or any way that you can help me in? Most professors, if they actually see, like they will be a very good, like put in a good recommendation, and you can probably get it that way.
So as you in your current job, you're kind of paving the way for like Muslim women to go into civil engineering. So can you talk about that, like the struggles of adjusting to the job?
Yeah. So when I first started, I was on site just for training. Oh, I forgot, just a disclaimer. I know that this show started out saying I'm a civil engineer. Just for legal reasons, I'm a civil engineering graduate, so I'm an engineer in training. I'm not professionally an engineer yet. I get my professional license after 4 years of experience, and that's a whole other story. Anyway, so
But it's important to raise, which is nice that you actually raised that.
yeah, so students in engineering should know that once they graduate, it's not legal for them to call themselves a civil engineer, put that title professionally. It's after 4 years, they do the exam of the province or state that they're in, and then they get their official engineering license.
Yeah.
So my first month and a half to 2 months on the job, I was at a construction site in Vaughan, Ontario. So I wasn't really responsible for major things. I was just learning, helping out with little tasks and stuff until I get my own project. So on the construction site there, I think there was one other female that I saw maybe once every 2 weeks. She was just a site administrator. She worked in the office. Other than that, it was all it was all men. Most of them were middle-aged men and for the construction workers. Most of them came from rural parts of the city.
A farm.
Yeah. Half of them owned farms and horses and chickens.
So
to them,
did they know what your scarf meant and what being Muslim meant?
One of them didn't. One of them asked the person that I was training with, like, what's that girl wearing on her head? Why does she always have a scarf there? And he's like, man, where are you living? Where do you come from? And so with this man, actually, I didn't really have major issues, but I kind of felt like he always looked at me weird. He never greeted me when he came into the office. Like, he'd greet other people. But I'm not a bitter person. So because I know people are afraid of what they don't understand or they don't know, so I tried to clarify the picture for him. I tried to have like one-on-one conversations with him on the construction site. If he didn't say good morning, I would say good morning to him just to show him like I'm nice. I'm no different than you are, like, why are you treating me this way? Even for other construction workers on the site. So the first week, everyone was looking at me weird, like, other than she's a girl, other than she's tiny, she's also Muslim, like, who is this person on site? And they can barely take commands from a man, like project coordinator, let alone a Muslim female. So I was getting weird glances, but I don't like, it doesn't affect me. It just gives me a goal of trying to let them get to know me better and clarifying things for them. I even got into like mild religion conversations with them just to open their eyes on misrepresentations that they have, misinterpretations. And after 2 weeks, I had everyone honking their horn and saying hi to me as they passed by. So it was a major.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It goes to show that, we're often afraid of the unknown, and we have to be aware of that. If people don't know what my religion means, then of course they're going to be afraid, and they're going to find me different. So making that more normalized, I think, is what you did, and it's very important.
Yeah, I think it's all our duty to do that, actually. Don't hide away in your shell. Show them what you're actually made of. Especially
as Muslims living in the West. Zaynab, what is your final piece of advice for our listeners?
My final piece of advice is, so for people in engineering majors that haven't graduated yet or will graduate maybe in the next year, if you get the opportunity to actually gain experience in the field, don't put it off. I know a lot of my friends or people that I know, including myself even, I'm like, we don't want to waste time. We just want to graduate. I don't want to be left behind. All my friends are going to graduate early. No, take that internship, do that co-op, get that experience, because it will help you so much when you actually graduate and are looking for a job. Those companies that you intern for, like, you have a really big chance of getting hired by them after. So don't ever be scared, like, oh, I'm going to be late. Because what's a year of being late in front of having to look for a job for 2, 3, 4 years when you're incompetent anymore. So that's my piece of advice.
Thank you so
I have
much.
a lot of advice, but this one's really important.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sister Zaynab. So you'll be coming back at the end. We're going to bring both of our panelists back together at the end to ask questions to each other. But next, we want to introduce Salmaan Bhimji, again, a mechanical engineering student at Penn State University. So let's bring in Salmaan. Assalamu alaikum. How are you, Salmaan?
Alaikum assalam. How are
Assalamualaikum.
you? Alaikum assalam.
Good, alhamdulillah. I guess the first question is, why engineering? And I think you were telling me this story, and it has something to do with Umaja games. So that should be interesting to hear.
Oh, that's a cool story.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I took a couple of classes in high school for engineering, and it really clicked. I loved how just what engineering was about, specifically mechanical engineering. I love to see how like systems operate and things work and the inside of things, you know. But one of the things that really strengthened my love for engineering is actually because of one of the emoji games that happened in Detroit.
Mhm.
And it gave me the opportunity to visit actually the General Motors headquarters. So that was a really good experience. I was mesmerized. You know, I did like we looked at the ground floor there, and there were cars on display, and it seemed like just such an amazing place to work. And quickly, it became my dream to like someday, you know, get to that position. So I think that really strengthened my love for engineering.
So, Salman, you are currently in your first semester in engineering, correct? Can
Well,
you tell us?
this spring will be my.
Yeah,
This is going to be
you're
my
about to start,
second.
so. Oh, it's
Yes.
your second semester. Okay. So can you tell us how your first semester went and how are you preparing differently for your second semester?
My first semester was pretty good. The classes were a bit basic, but I did have an intro to engineering class, which I enjoyed. Coming up though, I don't have any engineering classes, but I'm gonna have a physics class, which is pretty exciting since I had chemistry last year. And I'm just really finishing my requirements and preparing for the future engineering classes ahead.
Okay, so can you just tell us, with your first semester of college, how did time management work? Like, how was the workload, and how did you balance it?
Yeah, sure. So time management was like one of the biggest changes that I experienced in the transition from high school to college. I always heard of how big time management is. I didn't really realize that until I actually was in the college environment. So time management is like key because there are just so many things going on. So I quickly learned to utilize my calendar, utilize a schedule so that I can keep everything on track and, you know, not fall behind. Because once you fall behind, it's
Yeah.
really hard to get back on
Mhm.
track.
Right. So it doesn't have to be like a super elaborate solution. It just kind of has to be there and in place and consistent, I guess.
And I think it has to work
Right,
for
a
you
simple
because every
schedule can go
single
a long way.
Yeah.
person, yeah, works differently.
Definitely.
I think there's like a little bit of a lag, which is why some of our questions are cutting Salman off, and so we're sorry for that. But can you tell us a bit about your hobbies outside of school?
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, I was saying, can you tell us a little bit about your hobbies outside of school?
Sure. I don't have a ton of hobbies at the moment with COVID, but during the summer when I'd had a little bit more time, I was hiking. I think the pandemic gave my family and I an opportunity to go outside more and connect as a family. So we definitely did a lot of hiking. I'm in Pennsylvania. We have a beautiful, you know, nature scene here. We have forests, so we really enjoyed hiking. I love
And how about, I think you were telling me about your business that you're working on starting. And tell us a little bit more about that.
yeah. So it's always been my dream to have a business. I do love as much as I do love engineering. At the end of the day, I do want to work for myself. So I've been
Oh,
really
okay.
trying
That's
to get
interesting.
into like the business arena and starting my own business. I'm in the really early stages, so I have no clue what I'm going to be doing. But I've definitely been researching and trying to learn more about what it takes to become a business owner.
And then your private pilot's license too. I think at the
Yeah, I
beginning it
really
said
want
that
to know
you're
about
working
that.
for that. Yeah, that is so cool. And
Uh,
where also, by the way.
that's been my dream for so long. Like
Hmm.
ever since I've, been flying, I've always been interested in planes. Uh, my dad and I, and even my brother, we'd go like plane watching, plane spotting at the airport, and it's just, and then eventually, like, I wanted to be a pilot, obviously, as a child, but oh, once I realized that, it's not the best lifestyle for the life I want to live.
Yeah.
So the next best thing is like getting your own private license. And I did all the research. I figured out it is actually feasible. Like it's not crazy hard. And with
Uh-huh.
a background in mechanical engineering, it's actually a little bit easier since you understand how
Wow.
the components would work.
Mhm.
So the cost is around like $10,000. So I'm
Yeah.
holding it off for a little bit, but I have definitely downloaded like the official the FAA handbook, and I am
Oh,
kind of going through that, trying to
like
get
working
ahead a
through
little
it.
bit. Yeah, trying to
Oh, that's
self-teach as much as
Mhm.
I can before
so
formal training.
interesting.
And it's cool you bring that up because the
Definitely.
other day I saw this girl on, I think it was Instagram or TikTok, I don't know, but she actually owns her own plane and she's she has her own license for a pilot's license. So it's really cool. And it shows that it's possible. One question that actually comes to mind is, would you think about going into aerospace engineering later?
So aerospace engineering was actually one of the like minors or specializations that I was originally interested in.
Hmm.
I still am. It's
Hmm.
just that there are some ethical issues, especially as a Muslim and working in the defense sector.
Hmm.
So if I did go into aerospace, I would probably go into the commercial arena or space
Hmm.
research, space propulsion, rockets, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. So I don't know if you want to talk about the podcast, but I think we've already talked enough about your activities. But do you want to tell us a bit more about that? If not, that's okay.
I'll quickly mention it.
Sure.
So I have a newfound interest in Islamic philosophy,
Oh,
and
okay.
I began starting a book by Ayatollah Murtaza Mutahhari.
Hmm.
It's called Man in Universe, I believe. And I really wanted to share that information with the rest of the Islamic community, so I thought, why not
Hmm.
create a podcast? I'm working on it
That's
currently.
great.
It's not the first episode hasn't even been released, but if you're interested, the podcast has been released. There's just no episodes. It's called Muslamic, and it's available basically anywhere you listen to podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You
Hmm.
can find it. You can subscribe, and inshallah, the first episode should be up in a few weeks or so.
Inshallah. That's
So
very
interesting.
interesting. It's like you're bringing forward that Muslim Islamic perspective in regular context, basically.
Yeah, Islamic philosophy. I think that's a
Hmm.
topic that's not really discussed a lot,
Yeah,
and I'm interested
Hmm.
in it. So why not?
I'm looking forward to hearing it. Can you let us know your final piece of advice? It could be for someone who is pursuing different things that may seem impossible. I mean, you want to get your pilot's license, you started a podcast, you're building your own business, so that's a lot of it takes a lot of initiative. Or for someone who is going into engineering in their first year.
Definitely. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that might be interested in some of the things I am. So my advice to you, for engineering at least, is get involved with your university. Those emails that you receive by your school, you might take those for granted once you get like 20 a day, but open each one up and there might be that one event that there's only like 30 kids that go to that might change your life, build connections, and
Mm,
one of those might turn into like a job opportunity or something that could take you really, really far. So that's my advice to you.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great
thank you,
advice.
thank you so much, Salman.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
And now we are in our final segment of this show. We're going to be bringing Zaynab and Salmaan together. Assalamu alaikum, both of you. So we're excited to have this part of the segment, which is more like the mentorship kind of thing, where we can hear both of your advice to each other or questions that you had throughout the show. And we also have a couple questions from Inspire, I think. Imran, we have those?
I think we do, yes.
I think we can pull up one of those questions. But do you guys have any questions for each other that you had during the show?
I wanted to ask him about going to aerospace engineering also, but you asked him about that. But I also want to ask, I know I have friends that are in mechanical that I think did like a year of aerospace or something, but they work in like aircraft companies, like companies that manufacture aircraft motors and stuff like that. Is that like where you want to end up with in your mechanical engineering degree?
So I'm still trying to figure that out. Another field that I am interested in is materials engineering, but that would be really interesting. And yeah, you can definitely work at a aircraft company of any sort with a mechanical engineering degree. So you don't really need an aerospace degree.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
So I think we can pull up one of our Inspire questions right now.
So we have one question on Inspire. We don't have it in the slideshow yet, so I apologize for that. Yeah, but the question that someone had asked is, can you just talk about the importance of and the concept of engineering ethics?
So engineering, I think Salmaan would be more familiar with this. Probably took it in a course in his first year. I took it like 6 years ago. I guess there's a whole course on that you have to take in uni, and it's basically
for Zaynab, how is it applied in real life? Maybe that question is more for you.
So I haven't been very deep into my job yet, so I haven't been put in any situations. But it's basically like don't be bribed, like don't accept bribes. They tell you what category bribes go under. If like safety is a huge issue, if you have like just 1% doubt that something isn't safe, no, make sure it is. Like don't use cheap materials just so you can make money for your company or for your pocket. It's basically logical things that deep inside you will know if it's ethical or not. But those are a few examples.
One of the examples that my engineering teacher gave me for ethics that Sister Zaynab described perfectly was the Challenger mission that NASA had. As we know what happened to the Challenger, it blew up. That was all because of one bolt and NASA's incompetence to go over and give it a final check because they wanted to launch at a certain date. And if they didn't, it would cost them maybe a couple extra whatever dollars. But because of that incompetence, many people lost their lives. So yeah, ethics is definitely a big role in engineering.
Yeah, just because someone might be a little lazy, just goes like, yeah, that will pass. It's okay. It's one bolt. It's just one reinforcement. No, but it has major damage.
So I wanted to ask you both. This is for either of you. How do you try to connect, or what connections do you see between Islam and engineering?
And I think really quickly, Zaynab, you mentioned being, that visible Muslim woman on the field. And Salmaan, when we asked about aerospace engineering, you said, there's a bit of, you were iffy about it, because you are a Muslim man, right? So if you guys can expand on that a little bit.
You go first, Salmaan. But those I think we gave two really good examples.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble for this, but
just say whatever's on your mind.
Go ahead.
Working in the defense sector as a Muslim person, man or woman, you have to ask yourself, you're creating weapons technology for this government. Where is it going to go? How is it going to be used? Who's going to get killed in that process? It's personal. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's fatwas on this. I don't know. Do your own research with your, with their Ayatollah, but like just think about what you're doing and how's it going to be used and what the impact of the technology you're developing is. That's all.
So for Salmaan, it was more like, for him, it was more like future wise, look at the greater impact. Like, don't look at just this moment, how it's going to affect you and your people in the future. For me, it's more the right now, the more like, I'm in a position where I'm meeting people that know nothing about me, and what I am represents completely my lifestyle, my way of life, which is a Muslim person. So I have to let them get to know that better. And I was actually having this discussion with one of the foremen on site, and we were talking about how, because he was telling me a story about racism and how someone got fired from the job because of something like a racist thing. And I got to telling him how I find it that it's my duty and others like me in positions like this, when they have this conversation, to show people that, like, the good side of us, well, the good that we have. So maybe if I had an effect on one person, this person is going to have an effect on how they raise their family, and then their children, they're going to be affected also by their parents' views, and that's how it spreads and how it becomes something good. And also another thing that has nothing to do with how I am or how a Muslim person is just making it something common for Muslim people to be in this field, so that they have these future connections and way of getting access to these jobs.
Especially in terms of mentorship, right? Which is something that is actually offered on the Inspire app. So you guys can sign up as mentors, and people can connect with you and ask questions directly through there, which is an amazing opportunity because we don't have that many, especially Shia Muslims within these fields, which is nice to have that experience as well. All right. Well, thank you so much to both of you for this amazing show. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I think our viewers did as well.
Thank you so much for having us. It was nice meeting
having me. Yeah.
Our pleasure. So join us next week for another episode of our talk show. Next week is going to be the second episode of Community Voice. So if you remember from 2 weeks back, we had Ma'rifa on. Next week, we are going to have another amazing Shia organization to focus on.
And Community Voice is just a way to bring together, just bring more awareness about these different organizations that are around us, and give them that spotlight to shine and have a voice, basically. So it's a cool show, and we hope that you tune in next week, inshallah. Other than that, this was the uMentor Talk Show, hosted by myself, Fatima Al-Sayed, and Imran Darimzi. And we hope that you tune in next week and the week after. Next week on Community Voice, and the week after for the uMentor Talk Show, inshallah. You can find and listen to our show on SoundCloud, iTunes, and there was one more, I always forget it, Spotify. And this was from the Emoji Outreach Foundation, uniting and empowering the Shia community.